Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Next slide, please. Hope everyone's doing well and enjoying their time off or enjoyed their time off. I know some folks are going back to school in a week or so. So thanks for joining us this morning. Before we get started, I want to remind everyone of some etiquette, Zoom etiquette. Please keep yourself muted. So if you haven't checked, please take a look at your screen to see if you are muted at this time. And if not, please mute yourself. You may put questions into the chat, and there will be time for Q&A at the end. Also, we are going to drop the presentation that we're doing today into the chat. I think it's already there. So if you want to see a copy of that, of the presentation, check out the chat. This session is being recorded. We will, as per usual, break out into regional breakout rooms. Those rooms will not be recorded. So we are on the agenda slide. So we'll do some introductions in a few moments. We'll talk about some questions that came up during the last charter chat. We have a few hot topics for you, and then we'll go into our regional breakout rooms and end with a Q&A. Next slide, please. So introductions. So as you probably already know, CASI is a collaboration among three groups. So we have Allison from the California Department of Education. Allison, can you give everyone a wave? And then we also have the Santa Clara County Office of Education, and I am the executive director of the Charter Schools Department here at the SCCOE. We are joined today by Michelle Johnson, who's the executive director, Shalu Sharma and Cynthia Tapia, who are the fiscal administrators, and by someone new to our team, Matthew Doherty, who's waving now, and he actually is coming to us from a charter school. So he is getting to know he's come over to the dark side. Next slide, please. So we also, our third partner is the California Charter Authorizing Professionals, or CAP, and we're joined today by Tom Hutton. His two partners in crime are David Patterson and Debbie Deal, and I don't believe either of them will be here today. So
that's right.
Tom is on his own today. Next slide, please. So first off is our previous charter chat questions. So there are several questions that came up last time, and I will take the first question, which is, do charter schools need a board resolution for sufficiency under Williams? And so Ed Code Section 1240, which was revised by AB 599, indicates that charter schools are not required to submit board resolutions of sufficiency for charter schools to address for Williams, rather. But the charter school, its authorizer, and the county office who does the Williams review can all make a determination that a resolution is needed. But it's not required. But those three groups can get together and say, yes, we do need a resolution to demonstrate sufficiency. Okay, Michelle, can you take the next question?
Absolutely. So the next question is, in Williams, what role does the authorizer play, and what role does the charter school play? So charter schools are now eligible for review under the Williams Act if a charter school has been identified as a comprehensive support and improvement, or CSI, or additional targeted support and improvement, or ATSI school, then they are now subject to Williams review. Also, charter schools in which 15% or more of the teachers who do not possess a valid, clear, or preliminary credential also will be identified for Williams review. While you as an authorizer may not need to perform the Williams review, as that falls on the county offices specifically, you should still be aware of which of your charter schools will be reviewed. Williams reviews cover sufficiency of instructional materials, as Mifala explained, credential reviews, and facility reviews for the charter schools. For non-charter schools, copies of the Williams Uniform Complaint Procedures also have to be provided in every classroom. Charter schools will need to prepare and make sure that they can provide the information that their county office needs to complete the Williams monitoring visit. This visit will take place within the first 21 days of school, and the visits may be unannounced or announced. Once the visit has been completed, the county office will create a report regarding the findings at each of the schools and how or if those findings were corrected. More information regarding Williams monitoring can be provided on the link, which is included in our resource page. And for any schools with questions or concerns regarding their placement on the Williams monitoring list, please contact the Analysis, Measurement, and Accountability Reporting Division.
Okay, so there was a question in the chat from Barbara asking which 3 agencies can determine whether or not a resolution of sufficiency for instructional materials is needed. So it's a local decision that should be made by the charter school, its authorizer, and the county office. And in some cases, the county office is the authorizer. So I'm not sure how savvy charter schools are at this point about any of this anything related to Williams. So I'm not sure that they don't know. They don't have to, they are not required to submit a resolution of sufficiency. Tom, do you want to take the next question?
Yeah, we're going to get into a little bit of legal jargon here. This came up last time because I think people had on their radar that the first appeal of a denial of a petition to the state board was on the table, and so people were wondering how that was going to play out. So let's just review for those who are new to the topic. If a district denies a petition and that goes on appeal to the county office, the county's standard of review for the appeal is called de novo, and that's just Latin. That means we're doing it anew. So you start with a blank slate and review the petition. You're not just at the county level reviewing the process at the district level. You are just you're doing it as a new petition altogether and reviewing everything soup to nuts. That used to also be the standard at the state board when the denial happened at the county level and went on up to the state board. But the legislature changed that. And now the standard of review at the state board is abuse of discretion. That is the most deferential legal standard of review in an appeal. And that's different. Now that applies for a new school petition that's denied through the district and county or just at the county and gets up there, or a renewal petition. It does not apply to the denial by the district of a renewal of a state board authorized charter school. That's a different animal, but those will become rarer as we go. So at this point, so abuse of discretion, again, it's the most deferential. There's a memorandum about it that's going to be in the resource materials that the state board put out to kind of explain the parameters of it. I won't read that language entire, but we copied and pasted a bunch of the language into the resource page that you'll see that for this charter chat. But basically, the hub of it comes down to was the decision to deny the petition arbitrary, capricious, entirely lacking in evidentiary support, unlawful, or procedurally unfair? If you unpack that a little bit, you could have an assertion that the procedure was right, but the decision made totally no sense. That's kind of a substantive argument. That's lacking in any evidentiary support, and you just kind of made a decision to ignoring the evidence. And then there's the procedurally unfair side, which is, I think, where more of these things are likely to be looked at, like all the steps along the way were they done. And that was that issue in the case that the board just decided. So that was the Samoa Beach Academy. It was coming out of Humboldt County. They just decided it. And the way, so they had a two-step process, and the board, they post the videos online to watch. You can watch the meeting and see the proceedings and how it played out. The first step was the ACCS has to make a recommendation to the board whether they should hear the appeal or just dismiss it summarily. In this case, the ACS said, the facts are disputed here, so it's at least enough that the board should hear it. So the board's action, they had a first action was just the decision on whether to hear it, which they said, okay, we're going to hear it. And then they had the actual decision on the merits of the appeal. And in that case, although there were some issues raised and asserted about how the process went at both the district and the county level, the state board did not find that the decision to deny the petition was abuse of discretion. They found, it ultimately, whatever you want to debate about little procedural details, it did not impact the ultimate decision by the district and the county governing boards. It's important to emphasize that as the state board has, that these cases are handled case by case. So we just have to keep watching. The second one is coming there's another coming in August and I guess in September. And you can see we have a link to their agenda item in the resources so you can go back. And I guess one of the takeaways is if you are in a situation where you're, an appeal to the state board is in your future of a decision you've made, or if you're just navigating a denial anyway, it's a good idea to be in touch with your legal counsel about what do we know so far about the standard of review and what happened in the cases as they keep coming forward. We'll need to sort of track that and make sure that we're aware of what was debated. And as we figure out how we're going to handle our proceedings, we're ready.
Great. So Tom, there's a question from Kathy Morris wanting to know if abuse of discretion, I think, applies to revocation. Kathy, if that's not correct, can you unmute and clarify?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that it's petitions that go on appeal up to the state board. So that's the abuse of discretion standard applies to petitions. If anybody else has any insights into revocation, I'm not aware that revocations necessarily are.
Maybe that's the question we can bring back next month.
Yeah.
Oh, Craig is saying that's correct. Hello, Craig. Thanks for joining us. All right, so we are going to move on to the next slide, please, and talk about current legislative updates. Michelle?
All right, so for those of you who may not be familiar with the legislative process, bills go through a 2-year term. This is the last year for a bill to complete its process. Currently, the legislature is in recess for July, and they will return on August 1st. So all of the 3 bills that we have been tracking have passed their initial houses and are making their way through the other house. AB 2484 is currently in the Senate Appropriations Committee and has a hearing scheduled for August 1st. AB 2774 is on the second reading on the Senate floor. SB 1343 is in the Assembly Appropriations Committee, and it has a hearing set for August 3rd. The last day to make it out of committee is August 12th, and the last day for each house to pass bills is August 31st. Next slide.
Thanks, Michelle. All right, so we're going to move on to some hot topics, which is information that is relevant right now. And we're going to start with program hot topics. Michelle, can you talk about universal pre-kindergarten and TK?
Sure. So the CDE plans to release updated frequently asked questions regarding universal pre-kindergarten or UPK and transitional kindergarten, which is TK, and charter schools shortly. We will be sending updates via the CASI listserv. So please visit the CDE UPK office hours webpage for additional information regarding the upcoming technical assistance opportunities in August. And I'm going to turn it over to Matt to talk about the local control accountability plan.
Thank you. So all LEAs are required to submit their Lcap by July 1 each year to their authorizer.
as well as to their local county office of ed, unless those are the same entity, in which case you submit to the county office of ed if they are your authorizer. The 2022-2023 LCAP must follow the approved template and include all of the following components in this order in one document: the LCFF budget overview for parents, the supplemental updates to the 21-22 LCAP, usually completed mid-year with an update from past February, your plan summary, including engaging educational partners, goals and actions, increased or improved services for your unduplicated populations, your foster youth, your English learners, and your low-income students, the action tables, and the instructions. If your LEA has been designated for comprehensive support and improvement, there's an additional required section that you must complete and include in the LCAP. Again, only if you have been designated for CSI is that required. The LCAP and the budget must be approved by the governing board of the charter by June 30th at the same board meeting, as well as you must hold a public hearing to elicit feedback from your community partners prior to board approval. And so that has to be done at the same meeting by June 30th, and then it must be turned over to your authorizer and COE by July 1st. So back-to-back deadlines there.
So can I just jump in and say that in the past, we have received LCAPs from charter schools, and they did not have all of the required pieces that Matt just named off. We'll have a list in the resources on the resources page that you'll get after this meeting. So at the very least, you should probably check to make sure that the LCAP that you receive and post online has all of the required pieces. And in terms of due diligence, you'd probably want to give charter schools some feedback on their LCAPs. Even though we don't approve them, we do want them to write good LCAPs. So providing feedback should be part of your authorizing process.
So there were two questions regarding LCAP. So the first one is, are charters still allowed to use the LCAP as their Sipsa? And the answer to that is, I believe yes, but I'm going to ask Craig if he can chime in and verify that.
So sorry, I'm getting over COVID here, so I'm off camera. So can you state again one more time what you just said? I'm sorry.
Sure. Are charters still allowed to use the LCAP as the Sipsa?
Yes, that has not changed to date.
Perfect. Thanks, Craig, for that.
You're welcome.
And then the next question was, what if a charter missed presenting the local indicators at the same meeting as the LCAP? That's a good question. I would assume that would be a question for their board, because their board is the one that has to approve the LCAP.
I don't know if Sandy or Craig wants to weigh in on that question. And if not, we can.
It would be for their local governing board to determine. That's correct.
Okay. Thank you. Tom, do you want to talk about
one more question just came through
okay.
On that LCAP.
So the last question is, what role does the CDE provide if the LCAP is incomplete?
Well, CDE's review process, this is Craig again, we do not dictate something that overrides the local governing board. If it's a state board authorized charter school, the consultant works with the school and may give suggestions, but we're very careful not to insert ourselves into a decision by the local governing board. It still is the place where the LCAP is approved and reported to ultimately. So we don't directly interfere with that.
And again, I think it's important for the county office, though, once the county office receives it, to let the school know, or the authorizer, whoever the authorizer is, to let the school know that they have an incomplete LCAP.
Yes, we do the same, and then hopefully we haven't had an issue where that has not been addressed locally. But it's a balancing act between providing technical assistance and also trying to keep out of running the charter when we're just an authorizer. So it's been a good process so far where that's been well received and understood. And then it goes back to the local governing board.
All right,
Okay.
so we have a new
Oh,
question.
yeah, and we do. And could the ASLA?
I'm assuming Laco.
Okay. So if Laco says LCAP is incomplete and suggests revisions, does the school have to present a new LCAP for local governing board approval? I'm assuming that Laco is the authorizer. So for charter schools, the authorizer does not approve the LCAP, but we should be giving them feedback. So the feedback would be that to the charter school should be that the LCAP is incomplete and here are some revisions we think you should make, but that's all we can do. And they either choose to make them or not. I don't know if there's a follow-up question or more background or content that this person wants to share or not. Okay.
But I will add that if you make those corrections to your LCAP, then your governing board does have to reapprove it. Because they're the ones that have approved it in the first place.
You mean the charter school governing?
Yes.
Okay.
The charter school board.
Great. All right, Tom.
All right, teacher credentials in charter schools. Many people on today's charter chat were with us last week when we did our quarterly training on this by video with the help of some very informative colleagues from the San Diego County Office of Education. If you weren't able to join us, by way of review, there's a deadline looming for authorizers on checking teacher credentials in the charter schools now that we have new rules for them, which have many nuances and different kind of scenarios. And it's a process we've been down before, but this year it counts. So luckily we had a training that was very comprehensive. They looked they reviewed the rules. They talked about how they interface with Williams and UTK and a variety of things, gave you a whole list of resources, walked through where you go on the website to do what, and showed you screenshots of it. The video of that training will be on the CASI website soon if you weren't able to join it or if you need the review. And again, a long list of resources which you'll find on the CASI website, which I think you'll find very helpful in navigating that process.
Great. All right, so next slide, please. We're going to move on to hot topics in the fiscal oversight area. So I'm going to turn it over to Cynthia Tapia and Shalu Sharma.
Thank you, Mithila. So we would like to start with the pupil estimates for new and significantly expanding charters, or PENSIC for short, which is due by August 1st for the 22-23 fiscal year. The PENSIC allows for new or expanding charters to receive advanced apportionment funding based on the PENSIC and the 20-day attendance report. Please visit the CDE website that is provided on the slide for further details. The second current fiscal hot topic is the 45-day budget revise. Per Education Code 42127H, all LEAs have the option to file a revised budget 45 days after the governor has signed the California budget into law. This revision allows LEAs to start the fiscal year with accurate budget information based on the changes to the revenues and expenditures. Governor Newsom signed the California budget on June 30th, 2022. 45 days is August 14th or August 15th, being the following Monday. Given some of the advantageous items that made it into the final budget, charter schools might take advantage of this option to update their board-approved adopted budgets. And now I will pass it on to my colleague, Shalu.
Thank you, Cynthia. So I'll be sharing a high-level overview of ADA loss mitigation provision in 22-23 enacted budget. I know there was a lot of talk going on about how the charter schools are going to be funded on the ADA because of the ADA loss or the enrollment loss. So there is some ADA loss mitigation provision, which is in 22-23 enacted budget that I'm going to share with you today. The key point to remember, this is only for the classroom-based charter school and is available for one time only. Unlike the district schools, the prior 3-year average ADA average provision, which is ongoing. So for classroom-based charter school, these two provisions are one time only. So the first provision that we're going to talk about is the attendance yield provision. Classroom-based charter schools are eligible for attendance yield provision only if the classroom-based charter schools 2019-20 attendance yield is greater than 21-22 attendance yield. Again, if the 2019-20 attendance yield is greater than 21-22 attendance yield, then the 21-22 attendance yield will be increased proportionately through a calculated adjusted factor, resulting in the increase to 21-22 ADA. I know it's a mouthful, but in a nutshell, what it is increase of 21-22 ADA to reflect 19-20 attendance rate. And we can talk more in the breakout section if we need to go a little bit more over how to calculate the attendance yield. But in a nutshell, it's basically we're increasing the 21-22 ADA to reflect the 2019. In case of 2019, attendance yield was greater in the attendance rate. So this attendance yield calculation basically remained the same as it was initially proposed by Governor Newsom as part of his May revise. The next provision that is in 21-22 enacted budget is declining enrollment protection. And again, this is for classroom-based charter school only. And this allows the charter schools that has experienced a decline in ADA from 2021 to 21-22, and they may receive an increase in LCF funding equal to the difference between 2021 and 21-22 ADA. Again, for most charter schools who did not apply for growth funding, their 2021 ADA should be equal to 2019-20 ADA. So even if your 2021-22 adjusted ADA is less than 2021 ADA, then the charter schools may apply for declining enrollment protection. Again, the ADA adjustment applies to ADA that will be used for LCF funding purposes only. I know there's the ADA that gets applied to other categoricals, but this ADA adjustment is going to be used only for LCFF funding purposes. And the change to the ADA and LCFF funding entitlement resulting from this provision would be reflected in 22-23 first principal apportionment, which would be certified in February of 2023. Given that impact, so we have been asked this question by a few charter schools, so how they should be looking for this additional funding. Even though this additional funding belongs to 21-22 school year, they may either, the LEA may book this receivable in 21-22, or they may recognize as an additional revenue during 22-23 as a prior year revenue once it is certified during the P1 for 22-23. And again, it's always good to consult with the LEA auditors how this may impact their audit for 21-22. Again, if you have any questions, we'll be happy to entertain any questions in a breakout session, or please feel free to email me or Cynthia. We'll be happy to, I know there's a lot of confusion around that. And again, we have some tools which is available in the resource page. We found the school services tool, which is very helpful in determining the adjustment to the ADA. So we have shared that tool again, and some more calculation how to calculate that adjusted ADA. Please feel free to use that as to determine what is. So Cynthia and I basically we tried to calculate that for our school just to have a sense of how much additional revenues that our school will be getting, and how this impact their reserves and all for upcoming school year. over to you, Tom, for the next one.
All right, so this is just a quick follow-up from the CCAP conference, which we had last month. And not everybody was at that conference, but something was said there that caused a little bit of confusion amongst the financial people. And we just wanted to make sure we got the correct information out here in case something happened kind of word of mouth, and you may have heard something. So, and this is the perils of letting the lawyers speak about the financial stuff. And we're repeating that error by having me step in for Debbie today because Debbie was going to speak about this. So I'm good, but it's going to be short and it should be pretty easy. So basically, we had one of the district attorneys from San Diego who prosecuted the A3 charter fraud case. And one of the things that he was bringing to everyone's attention is that the authorizer also came in for legal trouble because they had used the administrative oversight fees from the enrollment of the school to fund other things that had nothing to do with charter oversight. And the law is, let's put the 3% aside from facilities and just assume for our discussion's sake, it's the 1%. It's the lesser of 1% or what it actually cost you to provide the oversight. And that had been lost sight of by the authorizer in that case, and that caused problems. And in describing this, Kevin Fannin was the name of the guy. He said, this money isn't general fund. It's for a particular purpose. But for the CBOs and the fiscal people, general fund is not just a generic, like when we say general fund, we mean restricted or unrestricted. For them, it's actually like kind of an account where it goes. And people say, well, if it's not in the general fund, where does it go? And so Debbie Deal and Michelle Giacomini from FICMAT, who were asked this question in a later session. So, he must have meant just it's not unrestricted money, but it still goes in the general fund. And Debbie was saying, their recommendation is look at putting it in a local restricted account within the general fund. There's something called the Resource 9000, which kind of enables you to track expenditures and tie them back to what the function is. We will provide more information on that, so you don't have to like madly be writing it down now in the CASI resources. But if there's questions about this, the breakout today is another place where we can bring those. And thankfully, Cynthia and Shalou are here to help with anything that's over my head when it comes to those kind of details.
Great.
Just want to add, Tom, you covered it all.
Okay.
All right, next slide, please. So as always, we want to get your feedback on this meeting. So we're going to give you about a minute or so, 2 minutes to complete the feedback form. I think the last time we gave you a couple of minutes to do this, we didn't get very many responses. So please take the 2 minutes and let us know what you think about these meetings, how we can improve, or what you want that we're not providing.
Well, we have 13 responses now on our survey.
Hey, that's better than 3. All right, let's move on. If you're still working on the survey, that's fine. Tom, next slide.
Another very quick ask in the category of the begging and pleading that we do from CASI. There's a piece of information that we need for multiple reasons. And I'll just share with you candidly. One of them is that CCAP is wrapping up a big grant, and we have to sort of be able to share with the federal government how people have been using tools that we've been putting out there. But we also are entering, we're now going to be in the quote unquote second year of CASI, in which we have said, if you have something going on locally where you could use some extra help besides the regular CASI meetings, we are there to support that. And I'll just give an example. When we did the training on the annual reports toolkit, a group of district authorizers in Sutter County said, let's all do this together so we're not having to do it individually, and that'll kind of keep us doing it. And that's what they got the information from CASI, but they weren't just waiting for the next CASI meeting. They said, well, let's just form a little group in our own backyard. And we sent Dave Patterson to work with them a little bit. And the folks from Santa Clara and the folks from CCAP, we have a pretty good bench of people that can come help if you have anything that you're doing kind of more locally where you need a little bit extra help with adopting a tool or a practice that you've heard about through CASI. So here's the ask. very quickly, it could be a one word and just in the subject line. If you are using any of the tools and practices that you've learned about through CASI or before CASI started from CCAP, and even if that's just, well, let's look at the toolkit and check what our tool is and just see if there's anything we want to change. Could you send me an email with just the word tools in the subject line? That's all you got to do. It just puts us on the radar that you're out there, and maybe we'll follow up with a quick phone call and make it really easy on you. And secondly, though, if you have something where you feel like, I could use a little bit of extra help myself or my little group, aside from coming to charter chats or quarterly meetings, just in the text of the meeting, put the word help. All you got to do, at most, it's a 2-word message. Send it to my email and we'll follow up and make it easy for you, because we know we've put a million surveys out there and it's really hard for people to find the bandwidth for surveys with everything. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible. Just let us know. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Tom. All right, next slide, please. So we are going to move into breakout rooms. We'll have 4 groups that have already been pre-assigned. So in a few minutes, you will be asked to join a group. If it's not the group you want to be in a different group, then come back to the main room and let Amy know, and she will put you in a different group. So the 4 groups are non-authorizer partners, Northern Region partners or Northern Region authorizers, Central and Southern Region authorizers. We are going to, can somebody drop into the chat, the Jamboard? So go ahead and open the Jamboard. And once you are assigned to your group, you want to go to the slot, to the page on the Jamboard that is dedicated for your group. And as you have your discussion, please pick someone from the group to take notes, and also someone could be the same person or maybe not, to share out for the group, like a 30-second share out. All right, so Amy, send us to our groups, please. Back, everyone. I hope you enjoyed your time with your group. Oh, we don't have time here for sharing out. Do we have time for sharing out, or are we moving on to Q&A?
You want to make the Q&A time just this is what we talked about, and without going into detail, but here's the 5 things that were flagged or something like that.
Okay, so let's start with the Southern Region. Okay, so I volunteered to report out for the Southern Region. We talked about in lieu of property taxes, for a student who spent most of the school year in the district and then did like some recovery credits during summer school, and how the district would calculate in lieu of property taxes for that student. We also talked about providing feedback to charter schools regarding their Lcaps, and how we are addressing and giving feedback. Some folks are doing it informally through a phone call, some are memorializing it in writing, and some are actually adding it to the annual report at the end of the year. I think those are the main things that we talked about. So why don't we go to the Central Region?
Okay, in Central, we had 5 Post-it notes on our Jamboard. One was, hey, renewals are in our future, and we have to come to discussions with our schools about what the data we're going to use are. You need to be having those conversations, and that might be something that we want to talk about at CASI. Universal TK, a lot of questions, a lot of stress out there in the field about that. So hopefully we'll have those FAQs, and that will help, and we can bring that up at a future CASI thing as well. Facilities, lots of questions and challenges in areas that just don't have a lot of available facilities, and that necessitating a lot of material revisions, and that is another topic. Relatedly, material revisions just in general, like a relocation of a countywide, and some tussles over whether that's a material revision or not, and maybe some help with that, or comparing notes with others about communicating that. And finally, some follow-up on the training we had on teacher credentials, more in the nature of, sometimes it's not that people don't understand the rules, but a teacher has been teaching for a long time and the game has changed. Maybe actually contacting the authorizer directly when they've been told something by their school and they're like, this makes no sense. I'm going to pick up the phone and call the authorizer. And at least one person was saying that they've been fielding some of those things as teachers start to navigate the new rules and find out that there's some things they got to address.
So for the northern section, we only had 3 topics that we really talked about. Williams being clarified, making sure that the fiscal information is shared on the resource page, and actually 4 facilities, Prop 39 with regards to declining enrollment, and finally with community, how are we defining community for community impact? How much analysis are the charters having to do up front, and how much analysis are we doing as the authorizer? So,
okay. Was there a report out from the non-authorizer?
From the non-authorizer group, I would like to upvote, more importantly, Tom's topic of charter renewal and the use of local assessment data or local indicators. And just to put out there to the universe that if any additional plans may be requested from the 22-23 enacted budget, that perhaps it can be in the form of a consolidated addendum plan as opposed to multiple individual plans. So those were really the 2 topics, and we build on those and went into a little bit more details in each of those subjects.
Okay, great. Thanks everybody for participating in that. So are there any, we're right at 11 o'clock. So if you have any questions, feel free to email any of us or contact us at casi@cde.ca.gov. And I don't know if the team has anything they want to say before we sign off. We just dropped another copy of the link for the survey in the chat. So if you didn't take the 2 minutes to fill out the survey, please do that before you leave us. Anything else from the group? Tom, Michelle? No? All right.
Good. Thanks, everybody.
Have a
as
good week,
always.
everyone.